Blog Talk Radio.
And welcome to another edition of Carnivore Radio. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And we have Fran Keogh, a life business coach and someone that has some really keen insights into the troubled environment that we're all facing, from business people to, one's personal lives. So we welcome Fran Keogh to the show, to Carnivore Radio. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here again.
Yes, it's been almost 3 months. Time flies, and Nothing's really changed. And that's something we need to explore with you and our listeners. And that is that what I've heard, what was interesting, is the human mind, the human psyche can deal with anything, or not anything, most things for a certain period of time. But then it kind of unravels when there is no end in sight. Aren't we in that kind of a situation?
I think so. And I keep coming back to this, though. What about World War II? That was 7 years. And Talk about uncertainty. And yet, a lot of people who survived got through it, right?
That's true.
A lot of lessons in there, too.
Yes, we haven't had anything close to that in 70 years. And do you think there's any credence to the fact that maybe, we've had, some recessions and, some, 9/11, other things, but we really haven't faced a national crisis like this, have we? In a long time.
No, I guess the pandemic of what was it, 1918,
I believe.
1918, rather, yeah.
Yeah. So, we have a situation now that, there is no real end in sight, or, that we know of. And the other thing is, what I thought was really interesting that you brought up was we prepared for this show, is uncertainty. Mm-hmm. And the whole concept that I would think since the Great Recession, maybe a couple years after, until a year ago, politics aside, if you're the average person, you had a high degree, comparatively so, of certainty, financial and business and professional, maybe even personal security. Sense of security, didn't you?
Well, yes, and even those people that were not in that fortunate category, they still have there's still a lot more certainty to their days, even if it's not in a positive way. There's, I think everybody's just struggling with this. I can't believe there's a person around at the moment that doesn't have a level of anxiety connected to the uncertainty, no matter how comfortably off they may be. It's huge.
Yes, and I would agree with that. And before I throw it out to Dr. Lopkin, we mentioned this last time you were in the show, the uncertainty. I mean, how does that not, just to have people who maybe were working on their next big thing, the next big project, the next big phase of their life, just kind of say, hunker down and not do things? That's probably happening a lot, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And the thing is, though, Jeffrey, I can't remove the uncertainty for anybody. None of my clients, my family, my kids, none of us can get rid of the uncertainty. But what I think is so critically important is being able to navigate through it and live with it, learn to live with that uncertainty. And that, I think, is definitely supported by resilience and perseverance.
Nice. Dr. Lopkin, and also you can invite our listeners to call in as well, Eric, right?
Yes, if you'd like to call in, you can join us at 563-999-3693. That's 563-999-3693. And Fran, you mentioned World War II earlier. We've brought up the 1918 pandemic. Clearly, people have gone through long periods of uncertainty before. What is our reaction to all of this say about Americans today? Have we lost our ability to cope? Are we, have we sort of become wishy-washy?
That's going down an interesting path. And especially as, originally I'm a British citizen, but I'm now an American citizen. I've been in this country for 40 years. So I was a post-World War II child, obviously. And that era seems to resonate with me for some reason, even though I didn't actually live through it. I was born after. But still, I watch a lot of World War II TV series and things like that. And it amazes me how people got together as a team. They worked for the good of the overall, and that, I think, is critical. And one of the things, and I'm going to step into this right now, stick my neck out here, but I do believe that one of the founding principles of American culture is individualism, which is wonderful. And on many levels, that's a great thing. But the problem is, it also is its downfall. And I think that's what's happening in our more contemporary time is sometimes you just got to let go of the individualism and work together as a group, as a team.
I think that's a really profound point, Eric. Don't you agree that it seems like, we're not really all in, we're all in this together, but we're coming at from so many different approaches. Some people look up masks. Some people, you wear your mask. Other people, it's my constitutional right not to. It seems like Fran has an interesting point, doesn't she, Eric?
Absolutely. I mean, it is an American hallmark to be an individual, and that does seem to be holding us back from working together. Now, as a British citizen, I'm sure you heard stories from your parents of living through the Blitz and stiff upper lip, the whole thing during during World War II.
Right.
What what sets that apart from what we're doing now?
What sets it apart? As in, I'm not quite sure I understand the question. I mean, what's the difference between World War II and a pandemic, or how we're coping with it?
Well, how we're coping. I'm referring more to the fact that the Brits knew they had to come together. They knew they would. Not, it wasn't just great uncertainty. There were literally bombs falling on them.
Right.
And
right. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's the fact that it seems so much more clear and obvious. But what we're dealing with, and I'm thinking out loud here with this pandemic, is that you don't know what the enemy looks like. You can't see it. There's so much uncertainty again about what it really is, how it really operates. I mean, obviously the scientists and the epidemiologists, the doctors know a lot, but even they don't know everything, and we're still learning. So in World War II, the enemy was very clear, and you at least had some idea of how to go and fight it, a much clearer vision than we do right now. So maybe that's contributing to it, too. It's not as real for a lot of people. Some people still don't even believe it exists. Well, you can't deny the existence when you've got a bomb falling on your head.
No, I think that's a good point. But isn't it also true that this is an enemy from within? Like, it's almost like the secret enemy. You can put a face to the Germans and the Japanese and the Italians. Not making it I'm not saying it's any easier, but this is like the hidden enemy. It's almost like, the Cold War when, everyone's a spy. But in this one, people are actually dying. I think people are more easily, they rally around something that you can say, here's the enemy, this is tougher.
And I think that's a really, really good point. And as we know, a lot of people are asymptomatic. So if you don't even know you've got it, how can you even, But I think you have to go with the science and the evidence and just say, okay, we got to work together on this, because if we look around and we see other countries that have got it under control, and we haven't. We're not even close. And so that is that is a huge factor. But again, I think that tends to lead to more uncertainty. But the way that we have to deal with that uncertainty is learn to navigate through it and then use our resilience and perseverance, because ultimately, what choice do we have? We either give up or we keep going. So,
yeah,
I mean, really.
Interesting you say, like, on a little political, not politics in terms of, Biden versus Trump, not that at all, but just,
no.
I guess from the way people think of America, like even the world, I read a lot of press releases from around the world, and they're kind of aghast that the way we've failed at this. I mean, a lot of the world's actually, Italy is actually almost, back in action. We're kind of floundering. Yep. And you can point the fingers to whoever, that's really not the issue. Is,
no.
Now do more Americans and maybe the world kind of like we always had a faith in America. Are you kidding? We cured polio. We did a great job during the 1918 pandemic, and now we're one of the worst countries in terms of performance.
And it's not political. I mean, it's way beyond political. It's the fundamental guiding principles that aren't seeming to work because they're not consistent. And, I know there'll be lots of people who would disagree with me, but I don't see how we can look at it any other way. That we need to be working together and supporting each other. There's a beautiful quote it's a very short quote that I have right in front of me on my desktop. It's by Ram Dass, and it's, "We're all just walking each other home."
Interesting.
And,
Dr. Lopkin?
Yeah.
Dr. Lopkin.
I'd like to take this in a slightly different direction. The World Health Organization recently came out stating the fatality rate of COVID is 0.6%. Now, if you knew you had a 99.4% chance of being fine, shouldn't that be more comforting? And how much of an impact is it having when the nightly news hammers home every night? Oh, we have this many more cases. We had this many more deaths, and they're just focusing on the negative. How much more stress is that adding to the situation?
Absolutely, and that brings me to this point about, one of the ways we build resilience is to drop the negative information, tune it out, and start focusing. I know it sounds like a cliche, but developing positive connections, disconnecting from social media and the media generally to a degree at least. Yes, we want to stay informed, but there's informed and over-informed. And I think it's dragging our psyche so low that it's not helping. So I would totally agree with you.
I would agree with Dr. Lopkin, too. When you look at the body count, I mean, I truly believe this is a lot worse than the flu. If I had the flu, I'd say, okay, I got the flu, whatever. This is a lot more dangerous. But still, there's no emphasis on any good news in terms of, maybe some of the, like the insight that Dr. Lopkin said about the actual fatality rate or other things. It's all doom and gloom, and I think it's putting fuel on the fire, and people are scared.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't help at all.
Hold that thought, because we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling on it.
The dad joke. Corny, groan-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
What did the buffalo say when he dropped his son off for school? Bye, son.
So take a moment to make your kid laugh, because dad jokes rule. Make your kid laugh today. Go to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
And we're back with Carnivore Radio. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us at 563-999-3693. That's 563-999-3693.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. I have one quick question before I throw it back to you. And we talked a little bit about the universal, meaning, what's going on in terms from a country standpoint, world standpoint. Let's talk now, focus a little bit more on the individual. People do not do well with infinite insecurity. We've almost got that, Fran, don't we? And how does that affect people?
Right. Oh, so are you talking about uncertainty?
Yes, the uncertainty that, in other words, what this pandemic has brought, that and there with no end in sight either. Let me just real quick. If there's like a recession, okay, even a major one like 2008, yes, it's horrible. But then after, let's say, I don't know, a year or whatever, there's signs, okay, things are getting better or what. This is all nebulous. So a lot of uncertainty with real no finite end. Correct?
Yes, but I have to say that I'm one of those people, the eternal optimist. I do believe there will be an end, and if things are going to be different, we won't do life as normal, and maybe there'll be some really good things that come out of that. But I think it's going to continue for some time, and to say that things will be back to some kind of normal this time next year, I don't know. I have no idea, but I would be surprised if it was that good a year from now. But my point about uncertainty, that we can't remove it. So how do we learn to navigate through it and live with it? And that is key, and I think that helps to bring some clarity into the situation. If you would like me to, I could share a couple of points that might be beneficial, might be helpful.
Yeah, of course.
On how to. So the first thing I think that's important is to recognize our own resilience. You might hear some people say, well, I'm not very resilient. But if you think about it, we all have certain levels of resilience. When you're starting to grow, when you're starting to walk, you fall down a lot, but you just keep getting up and you keep going, right? And then as we go through life, we have challenges that come up. Sometimes they're very, vast challenges. They're huge, overwhelming challenges. Sometimes they're very small. But many of us get through them. We persevere. And because ultimately, again, it comes back down to what choice do we have? You either give up or you keep going. So recognizing your own resilience that you already have, that's innate within you, I think is really important. And stop me at any time. I've got about 3 or 4 or 5 points, but I'll keep going.
No, go ahead
if you want me to.
Go
So
ahead.
The second thing I think, rekindling your clarity and purpose. So, again, it's getting clear with, what you are doing in the world, what your purpose is. And I think where we get tripped up sometimes is that we think it has to be huge. It has to be earth-changing, world-changing. It's something enormously public. But purpose can be very small, everyday things. It could be just simply being there for others. Like I said, helping each other walk home. It's just being there for other people. So rekindling your clarity and purpose, and refining your focus and confidence. So that comes next. It's how do I get my focus into and my confidence into what I need to be doing now, because things have changed. So I have to be prepared to pivot. I have to be prepared to reinvent myself or whatever's necessary. And then navigating a path through that change and transition is really critical. And I think when I talked about developing positive connections and helping others, dropping that negative vibe, getting away from negative people as much as you can, because we all know we sometimes have to live with them and work with them. But creating a good supportive group around you and making meaningful connections, especially at this time, is so, so helpful. I think it's absolutely key to our mental state and well-being. Not for us all to sit around and complain and about the situation, but to come up with more enlightening and more positive conversations, and then determine an action and release it, and then surrender to the outcome.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. We on our sister podcast, The Success Showcase, we talk an awful lot about the positive mindset. Mm-hmm. And isn't it true that the effort to create a positive mindset actually snowballs, so that the more you work at being positive, the easier it becomes, and the more positive you become, the more resilient you become?
Yes, I believe so, and I know it's a cliche. Got to think more positively. But honestly, if you do set the intention every day, and we talked about this on May the 15th, because I was just re-listening, and again, you have a choice. You can either go around looking at all the things that you don't have, everything that's wrong, or you can spend time looking at the things that you do have. And even if it's not a lot, there has to be, it can be the smallest, simplest thing. Anything that you can do to lift your psyche up and get away from all the negative, get away from the news, get away from the spin, and just enough to stay informed, I think is enormously helpful and much healthier for your psyche. That's what I practice.
Absolutely. I think it's so important that you do that. And I mean, I completely agree with limiting, the negative information. And I think there is positive information out there that you can focus on. I mentioned earlier the World Health Organization's fatality rate was so low. There's also, it's come out just in the last week, there are 3 separate vaccines that are all heading into final trials and have all shown very positive results. That's something that you can pay attention to go, okay, we're starting to come out of this. We've got a light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm. And negative news sells.
Yes,
it does.
Yes, it does. I was a journalist for a long time. And, it all, there's an old saying, if it bleeds, it leads. And unfortunately, you have to work to get past that.
Yes, and that's the thing, knowing that it's about money, because most of the news that we get isn't actually news, it's entertainment. Because any time money is involved, advertising, for example, how that there's going to be some kind of influence and some kind of spin. And it's all about attracting the numbers, the ratings, in the end. And I'm talking about right across the board, both sides. It doesn't matter. It's about getting the numbers and whatever they can do. So knowing that, why do you want to spend much of your day watching it and listening to it? And I know people in my own family, not in my house, but who are just embedded in that. And it's like, how? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Talked about that for years, with the fact that people only get news from sources that report what they want to hear. They end up in these echo chambers. And that's how the news networks make their money, is by sucking people into these echo chambers and selling them advertising. So you do have to look at, and it's, as you said, it's both sides. It's CNN, it's MSNBC, it's Fox, it's Breitbart, it's all of these.
Yeah,
and you
absolutely.
have to take everything they report with a grain of salt, and learn to actually find sources on your own, rather than just be inundated with this negativity whose basic premise is, let's sell this.
Right.
And I'm listening to the both of you. Excuse me for a second. And Fran, I excellent back and forth points. But what I'm getting, listening to, isn't it really incumbent upon ourselves, because no one's going to do it for us, to build our own defense network, meaning against negativity, and as Eric was saying, build up our positive outlook.
Absolutely.
It's kind of up to us. No one's going to do it for us.
Right, that's absolutely my point. I found recently a newsletter I get once a week, I think it is, Reasons to be Cheerful. And it's like these uplifting little news stories. There's usually like 3 stories in it. And, it's refreshing. It's like something because there's a lot of positive out there, but we don't hear about it. You have to, as you say, Jeffrey, you've got to be very mindful and intentional about finding it for yourself.
Yes, and you need to seek out news articles. Like, I came across a news article. This is going back to March when the pandemic was really just starting out. And I don't know if you would classify this as positive or negative, but it was a story about a town in North Carolina where the police had to issue a statement reminding people that even though they were under lockdown, when they went out to get their mail, they were required to wear pants. Just seeing that story cracked me up, made my day. You need to seek out things like this.
I don't know if you know this, guys, but I used to hard to say, teach laughter yoga. I was a certified laughter yoga leader. And it's all about laughing uncontrollably for no reason. And, oh, my God, do we need that now? I mean, laughing is so therapeutic. We do need more to laugh about. It's just, I think it's invaluable to our well-being.
Fran, you say that, and I couldn't agree more, but we live in a time where, I'm looking back, I'll look at, me bygone eras like the 70s, we went through bad, but there's always a comedic outlet. I don't see that anymore. We're so scared to offend that it's really not that big of an option. It's not as pervasive as it once was.
No, you make a very good point there. I was actually just watching an interview with Mel Brooks, and he stated that political correctness and trying to avoid offending anybody has killed comedy. And we need comedy more than ever now.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, no question about it. Like, I watched reruns of, like, Johnny Carson. That would be, like, it's, pretty tame. A lot of that would be, they'd run him out of town. Go ahead.
Oh, I know. I was watching a little bit just the other night, actually. I said, oh, my gosh, this is really sexist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But I think there's different levels and there's acceptability. But, yeah, I would agree.
All right. Fran, we're coming up on the end of our time. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you and utilize your services, how can they do that?
They can reach me through my email, which is fran@frankeogh.com, spelled Keogh, or my website, which is simply frankeogh.com, or through you. They can contact you and you could pass on the information. I'd be happy to. Or LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn.
Excellent.
Very good, Fran. Thanks so much for coming on again.
Well, this was fun. I enjoyed it. I'd be happy to be a regular. We'll have to have some other topics. Maybe when we talk again in 3 months, things will have changed, right? For the better.
Yes, you never know.
Absolutely.
Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much.
You've been listening to Carnivore Radio. We broadcast live at 4 o'clock every week at blogtalkradio.com/Carnivore Radio. You can hear the replay as well as the Carnivore Bites podcast at xvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. We look forward to hearing from you, and join us at 4 o'clock next week. See you then.
Thanks.